Welcome one, welcome all. Thank you for tuning in to Cedar Lee Radio, your guide to films playing at the Art House for the week of October 26th to November 1st. My name is Aaron Spears. I'm the house manager here at the Cedar Lee Theater.
And I'm Dave Huffman, Director of Marketing for Cleveland Cinemas. On this week's episode, we'll be discussing the films Mid90s and Studio 54, which open here at the Cedar Lee Theater on Friday.
We'll also be discussing some Cedar Lee Buzz on the films we're currently playing. We'll check in with the specialty box office. Is it too soon to start predicting the Oscar race?
No, it's never too soon.
Never too soon, especially in the industry. And inspired by Jonah Hill's Mid90s, we'll be discussing our Cedar Lee 3 picks for best coming-of-age films. But first, we like to start the show off with the last scene. So, Dave, what is the last film you've seen?
Well, Aaron, since we're recording this right in the midst of October and it's, Halloween's coming up, I watched a real scary movie last night called Hocus Pocus.
I was going to say Good Burger.
No, it was Hocus Pocus. You're right in that same vein, though, and which is a film I'd only seen once before since I was, I don't have childhood nostalgia for it since when it came out. I was not a child, but a lot of people love that movie.
I've never seen it.
I do not remember it being that great, and then I did kind of enjoy it last night. Right. So it was better than I recalled it being, and I know that it is absolutely like many people's like defining favorite films of that generation. So it is pretty entertaining, I would say, overall. I especially, Bette Midler is just great in it, and Kathy Najimy is doing sort of a weird hatchet face impression from John Waters' Crybaby.
Crybaby, yeah.
And but otherwise, it's
what's the
it's just
third
okay.
act? Is that Sarah Jessica Parker?
Sarah Jessica Parker, yeah. Which she's very good in it too. She plays the ditzy kind of slutty of the three witch sisters.
Wait, the ditzy slutty sister, and that isn't a Disney PG Halloween movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's a Disney PG Halloween movie that starts out with a child being killed.
Oh,
so
wow! All right,
it's a little bit dark. As we were watching, and I was like, wait a minute, did they actually just kill that little girl? Yes, they did.
All right,
they sucked the life right out of her to make themselves young and beautiful.
I appreciate the heads up because that's on me and my kids list of. My kids and I. They'll murder me if I don't use the proper English there because I correct them all the time. That's on our list because it popped up everywhere, and we're looking up Halloween films.
It's not like gratuitous or anything, but it looks like the little girl's just sleeping in the chair. Okay. But no, she's dead. She's a little ghost at the end.
Well, I have an 8-year-old that's very sensitive to that, so I appreciate the heads up, so I know that conversation's coming my way.
And what was the last film you've seen?
The last one I saw was not, I guess it's kind of horrifying in a different way. It's a film called Clash from 2016. It's an Egyptian film.
Oh, yes. I did not see it.
It's directed by Mohamed Diab. It's set in 2013 after Mohamed Morsi was taken out of power.
Right.
And it's set all around the square there. So I'm a big fan of, I guess I'll call them gimmick films. Mm-hmm. So like all one take, set in one confined environment, found footage, that sort of thing. This is one of those confined space movies. So it all takes place in the back of a police van as people are slowly arrested during this uprising, during a civil war, basically, right around Tahrir Square. But some parts are funny, some parts are really dramatic, some have really high stakes, and it's just chaos all around them. And that kind of claustrophobic feeling being trapped in there. I was aware of it for the first maybe 10, 15 minutes, like it's all in this one location, but it's so dramatic you forget it right away.
So it's like an Egyptian revolutionary Hitchcock's Lifeboat.
Sort of, yeah. I was because it's a wide, because it's not just the political landscape in Egypt in that time period is not the way it is here, where it's very tribal and only one or the other for the most part. I mean, there's all kinds of varying factions. Then even within the protesters, there's people that want to murder each other, and you're wrong. I'm right. So very fascinating, very intense film. And it also, like I mentioned in a few other episodes, anytime activism and film kind of collide together, I'm like, ooh, I'm intrigued. What are we talking about here?
And once again, you watched something really classy and I watched Hocus Pocus.
All right. I'll cue up something trashy for next week.
That's all right. No, and I will watch something super classy.
Some of the Cedar Lee Buzz we had for this past weekend is pretty much just 2 films right now, even though there's plenty of quality films we're showing. Free Solo we have to talk about right away because holy cow, that movie just is really connecting with audiences.
And people are loving it, and we're expanding it this week in addition to playing here at the Cedar Lee. It'll be opening up at our Chagrin Cinemas location. So
Excellent.
If you're over there, you can go see it, or if you want to see it again, you got a couple of options of places to see it now. 2
comments I'm hearing a lot of over the past weekend. One is what we were talking about on last week's show, which is it's a big screen movie.
Right.
You need to see this on a huge screen. It doesn't work on your phone. It's not going to work on your computer. seeing El Capitan in Yosemite.
Yeah, you can't get like the sense of vertigo from watching it on your iPhone.
And even myself, like I am not good with heights or confined spaces, but I'm fine watching them on screen. And watching that trailer on my phone a few times, didn't get the sweaty palms. I saw it at work finally, on the big screen. I was like, my palms are immediately sweaty. I'm like, I'm gonna go back to work and stop watching this trailer. So it definitely works there. And then some people were confusing it with 127 hours, which wouldn't have even occurred to me. Two different people were like, the one where he cuts his arm off. I'm like, no. And then you explain it to them, they're like, oh, that sounds really good. I'm like, it is really good. It's not 127 hours.
That's
just
hilarious.
Public service announcement there. And Star is Born is really chugging along.
Yeah. People, I had a friend this weekend that I saw, and he was asking me if I'd seen it yet. He and his fiance, they both saw it back to back, like 2 days in a row here at the Cedar Lee. They came to see it.
Oh, just
2 days in a row.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
They loved it that much. So I think it's getting already a lot of repeat viewing from people, and just great word of mouth.
Yeah, word of mouth is really good.
It's the film that everybody's telling their friends they have to see.
Yeah. It's also into that territory now where when you, especially at Cedar Lee, because we don't experience it terribly often, but when you're playing a movie that's huge at the nationwide box office, not just the specialty box office, now it seems like a cultural obligation. Like it's getting so much generated buzz and money.
And once the Oscar nominations come out, then all the people that thought they could avoid seeing it will be like, all right, now I have to see it.
So what's your prediction? Are we going to end up trying to keep that movie around all the way till January?
Well, it's not that we try to keep them around. I mean, but people always ask, like, how long is this film going to be playing? And I always give them the same answer. We keep them as long as it's doing business. So as long as it's, we basically lose the films that are doing the least amount of business.
Right.
So as long as it can keep its, head above the, it's like the metaphor about you don't have to be the fastest person to outrun the bear. You just have to be faster than the slower person.
Right. Yeah.
So it's the same thing for what movies we keep around here. So if it sticks around, that'd be great. But there's, of course, a slew of movies opening every week, but it keeps beating them. So it'll stick around as long as it can. And then maybe if we do lose it, maybe it'll come back after the Oscar nomination.
We do always have those weird ones where like it does have to lose because there's only 6 screens. So even if we want to keep it, you can't always keep it sometimes. And we'll get it back once it.
And we've got lots of great things coming up.
That is very true. Speaking of which, at the specialty box office this weekend, Mid90s, which are opening, is another one of those like crazy high openers. It did 62,000 per screens.
Yep.
It is one of those cases though that's only on 4 screens. So is it connecting just in those markets, or is it going to work, overall?
And was it boosted because Jonah Hill and the cast was doing Q&As and screenings in the big cities? So those kind of get inflated a little bit sometimes. But it is a very well reviewed and very well regarded film that hopefully will find an audience here in Cleveland as well.
And a couple other ones that we have coming up here at the Cedar Lee Theater. November 2nd, we're getting Can You Ever Forgive Me, which opened very strong, 5 screens, 30,000 per screen average. And Wildlife was also out. That comes November 9th to the Cedar Lee, doing some pretty good numbers there.
And that one's another actor's directorial debut.
Yeah, I was just noticing
Paul
that
Dano.
there.
Yeah,
because we discussed that. If you've been listening to the podcast all along, when Blaze opened, we did. Was that with Blaze when we did actor directors?
I believe so.
And it just seems like that's what's coming our way for the whole award season. Bradley Cooper directing Star is Born, Jonah Hill in Mid90s, and Paul Dano in Wildlife. Going back to Free Solo real quickly, the Broadcast Film Critics Association started a few years ago doing a Critics' Choice Award for documentary films. Separate from just the Critics' Choice Awards. Is that how it works?
Yeah, they have these nominations came out well in advance of all the other kind of categories for narrative films. They have a separate kind of awards ceremony just for documentaries now, with their wonderfully eclectic list of categories that they have.
Awesome.
Very specific. It's like best still living live subject or something like that is one of them. So like Scotty is that we played Scotty in the Secret History of Hollywood. He's nominated because he's still alive. So it's not even so much for the film, it's nominating the person who's featured in the film. It's kind of an interesting kind of thing. But they do that. I always joke that they have so many categories because they just want to try to get as many, famous people to attend.
That's what I was wondering. What's the justification there?
So it's kind of like the Golden Globe thing where they have a lot of different categories just to try to get as many of the nominees to show up.
Right.
So, which is totally fine. And who shouldn't? Who are we to say that these people don't deserve to be, regarded and nominated?
Absolutely.
So,
this one I feel like it's worth mentioning, that whole is it too soon to discuss the Oscar race or not, because it's the largest critics organization in the United States. So it is one of those kind of like bellwether, like, if these, hey, pay attention to this. There's so many documentaries out if you're an Academy member to try to keep up with. Like, this kind of whittles down that a little bit. And we also want to mention it today because Free Free Solo leads the nominations this year. It has 6 nominations and 1 honor. It's in the Best Sports Documentary category, which
makes sense.
I kind of like laughed off at first, but I was like, no, I've seen some great sports documentaries over the years. There's also an innovative documentary category, and then some of the standard ones, cinematography, editing, directing, all that. Its honorary one is the most compelling living subject of a documentary. Right. That's when you're talking about with Scotty.
Yep. So he's up against Scotty.
Yeah. Which this one I feel might be unfair because it's such a feat that Alex Honnold did in this movie that it's a little different than just.
Yeah, but he wasn't a celebrity pimp.
I was gonna say helping people up, celebrity pimp, however you want to describe it. There.
I guess there's different ways to live compelling lives. That's all. That's what we can take.
There you go. Yes. Yeah. Different styles of different compelling lives.
Exactly.
We'll be right back with the new films opening at the Cedar Lee this week. We have 2 new films coming for you this weekend that are opening. Studio 54, directed by Matt Tyrnauer, who we were just mentioning, Scotty and the Secret History of Hollywood. That was his documentary from, God, that was just like 2 months ago, wasn't it?
Just a few months ago, yep.
That is how documentaries go sometimes. I know Steve James, one of my favorite documentarians, there's 9 things listed on his IMDb page that he's all working on, and every once in a while you get 2 or 3 a year just because, it's done now.
It's finally done.
And that's just how the workflow has to go. So this is about, obviously, the titular Studio 54, the infamous, most famous, I would say, club.
Yeah, without question, the most famous club of all time, I would say.
That right at that center of 70s hedonism, sex, drugs, rock and roll, everything going on there that was going on at Studio 54. It always pops in my head that horrible Mike Myers starring 54 movie from late 90s, I think.
Which there was a director's cut of a few years ago that was working
tempted,
its way around, and I always kind of want to watch it as well because the studio kind of really hacked it up, and so I wanted to give the director a chance and be like, well, let's see what you actually intended it to be, as opposed to a film that really sidestepped a lot of, specifically the gay subject matter of the film. They really cut a lot of that out.
Did it end up being PG-13 when it was released?
It was
rated R. Okay.
Yeah.
It's from the producer who shall not be named anymore over there at Miramax back in the day.
And who was the one that cut it all up.
Right. The Harvey Scissorhands.
Harvey Scissorhands.
Back in the day. I've heard about that.
He is notorious. And I had a filmmaker that I became friendly with from the Provincetown Film Festival whose film was completely butchered by him. And I wanted to reach out to him when all this was going on. I keep forgetting to send him an email just to go I just wanted to hear how
bad was it? Yeah.
Let's hear how happy you are now that he is getting his comeuppance.
But back to a good version of Studio 54. This one is not told with Mike Myers anywhere near the story whatsoever. It's archival footage. It's news footage. It seems like it had to have been a very well documented club at the time. This is one of those kind of archivist documentary dreams where if you want to see, because Matt's been doing these documentaries like Scotty and the Secret History of Hollywood, Valentino, trying to catch kind of cultural events, cultural influencers, and this seems right up his alley as far as subject matter goes.
When you walk through those blacked out doors, you were in another world.
Andy Warhol, Calvin Klein,
Elizabeth Taylor,
Mick Jagger. It was hot, sexy.
It's like an adult amusement park. It is so preposterous. We both came from Brooklyn.
They had this understanding that they were getting out and they were going to do something big together.
We wanted the ultimate nightclub.
Beautiful models, celebrities with gay men,
transgenders,
and it all started blending.
A world of fantasy that absolutely exploded.
Sex was in the air.
There were mattresses in the basement.
The amount of drugs was profound.
Everyone felt like they had to be there.
The people started to get angrier because they couldn't get in.
You can't have this much popularity without somebody wanting to take it down.
And then we're also opening up Mid90s, which, as we mentioned earlier, is Jonah Hill, two-time Oscar nominee for acting. This is his feature directorial debut. He also wrote the screenplay as well. And it follows Stevie, a 13-year-old in the mid-90s LA area who is spending his summer, learning about life and navigating his situation between his friends and learning how to skate and, just kind of if there's ever been a more kind of period-appropriate setting, it is like a 90s LA skater kind of movie.
Very specific culture.
I don't know if that's what Jonah Hill really was, because I have a hard time seeing Jonah Hill like riding around on a skateboard, but sure, why not?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe it was.
Know.
I don't know how autobiographical the story is for him, but it's gotten amazing reviews, and like we said, it opened up really well this weekend. So
yeah, very much so.
To see it.
It's one of those two that it's vague enough in the description that there's going to be a lot of surprises. Even the trailer itself just gives you the whole like hanging out with these kids kind of vibe. That was enticing to me because, well, we'll get into that when we do the Cedar Lee 3 picks this week. It has that perfect coming of age quality where it's a group of friends, do you or don't you fit in, especially being a new kid, which a lot of people can relate to. There's an older brother character as well, and then an absentee mom. So the main character I read is supposed to be, he was like 13, was it? 13, 14 years old?
Yeah, I think he's 13.
You said 13? Yeah, right in the description, 13-year-old. He looks like a 10-year-old in the preview or younger. So it has one of those where like he's kind of in over his head. Oh, that might be it too. Because I have an 11-year-old at home. And it's like, he doesn't look that much older than this. And he's getting into a lot more trouble than I ever want to see my 11-year-old getting into there.
Skating like shit today, man.
Looks cool to me.
I'm Ruben.
Stevie.
How long you been friends with those guys?
Couple months. They're really cool.
They're so cute. You're like at the age before guys become dicks.
We try to pick a list of 3 films each week that are thematically tied to something new that we're opening, and Mid-90s is a true, coming-of-age film. So we decided to take a look at our top 3 coming-of-age films. Did you find this one a bit bigger and harder to manage? Because we mentioned that on the previous episode.
There's so many films that kind of fit
too much of a wide net.
Yeah, it is a very a wide berth there, but I kind of narrowed it down. There was a couple that just immediately popped into my head, and then I had to kind of do a little bit of thinking on some other ones.
Yeah.
And I settled down on the first one on my list is one of my personal favorite movies. It's called Beautiful Thing from the mid-90s, 1996, directed by Hetty MacDonald, and it is a British film. As you know, I love England. So I
was holding my laughter until you were going to mention that. All right.
So it is about two young men who are discovering that they have feelings for each other, and it is filled with great mamas and papas music, and it's about these boys navigating their awkwardness of their first love, and dealing with the family as the family discovers who and what they are now as boyfriends, and them kind of just living their life and being who they are. And it is truly a beautiful thing. So I love that movie.
I had a different one listed first, but since you opened up that theme, this one fits in perfectly. I have a film from 1995, The Incredibly True Adventures of Two Girls in Love.
Oh, there we go.
Directed by Maria Magenti. She has gone on to do a lot of TV work recently, so not as much in the feature film. This one I saw in the theater when it came out. It has the aesthetic that mid-90s looks to have as well, a lot of handheld camera work. But it's the classic story of, one girl from the wrong side of the tracks and one girl from the other side of the tracks with a bit more money, and they slowly they fall in love. But this one was beautiful to me. This movie is also a beautiful thing to watch because neither one of the girls care. Like, they're feeling love for the first time, and it so perfectly captures that rush of first love, irregardless of what your parents or your schoolmates might think. They just go head first, and I won't spoil it, but the very last scene is a stunner. Like, it wasn't the way I thought it was going to go, and they stick together.
Yeah, I was surprised too when that spaceship came down.
Right,
that was
and the aliens come out.
Yeah, that was a real surprise.
Let's take you back to the planet where you'll be welcomed with open arms.
I hope people don't think that that's serious. Anyway, okay. The next one on my film is also from the mid-90s. Apparently, this was a great period, and maybe that's why Jonah Hill set his coming-of-age story in the mid-90s.
All my picks have a theme this week.
And mine is Welcome to the Dollhouse by Todd Solondz, which I love his movies for the most part. I love
that's a good qualifier.
This is a kind of a defining film in his career. Obviously, it's the film that's still kind of
known for it.
Right, that is the one that kind of put him on the map. And the seminal character of Don Wiener, who has reappeared in his last film, Wiener Dog, which is another totally odd little movie. God bless Todd Solondz for being such a wonderfully cinematic freak. I love him. But Welcome to the Dollhouse is just such a great movie that captures the awkwardness of being an early teen and trying to figure out everything, and just being just a weirdo and understanding that, all right, That's who I am, and that's okay.
Well, that was also on my list. So,
there we
also
go.
Welcome to the Dollhouse. I was going to mention though, with this one in particular, but also with actually with all three of my movies, a good coming of age film to me is either one that either connects with me, where I was like, oh my gosh, like I can immediately identify with that because I had those similar experiences. But the even better coming of age films, I think,
Did you
are
used
the
to
ones...
wear those little green capri pants?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So, the really great coming of age films are ones where it's nowhere near my actual experience, but it puts you so centered in their experience that you feel it with them as they go through. And Welcome to the Dollhouse is one of those really early ones. Again, I saw in the theater in '95. Was when I was starting film school, and it felt so awkward. It felt so real. We were like, oh my God. And Todd Solondz is that specific type of filmmaker, though, where he's not going to give you an easy out. To be like, oh, and at the end, she goes to the prom with the prom king, and everyone accepts her, and everything's great. You're like, it's bleak.
I can tell you, having ridden in an elevator with Todd Solondz, he seems to just exude...
Makes everything awkward.
Yeah, he just exudes awkward moments.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yep. But it was a great movie that still is definitely one that stands up against the test of time.
It's also that one where if you search him on IMDb, they'll do like the thumbnail profiles, like the most known for. Like it's still like, I don't think it's going to be erased. It's still like one of those top ones that he's known for.
All right, since I stole one of yours, go ahead. What's your next one?
My other one is my theme was not just mid-90s, but all 1995. So I'm going with Kids, the Larry Clark directed, Harmony Korine written debut for Korine, I believe, as far as writing goes. But it's a day in the life of a group of skate punks in New York City, acting horrible, being horrible people, doing horrible things.
Reprehensible children.
But it's definitely, you see, like, it's that coming of age era where okay, this is going to be defining moments for most of these characters, mostly all tragic. But I've revisited this one a couple years back because I realized I didn't own it, and it's one of those like seminal films that I saw that was like meant a lot to me when I saw it. Going back to, again, that was going to be a Miramax movie when it came out, but they established a separate distributor company just to put that movie out in theaters to get around the MPAA and the rating system. So there's some good things that came out of that studio back then. And this one was...
Well, there's lots of great things.
They had, they had the guts to really feel compelled that this movie needs to get out and be seen. And I remember my mom had called and asked if I planned on seeing this movie because I was already at college. And I was like, oh, I already saw it last weekend. We're going to go back again this weekend. And she's like, well, it sounds terrible. And so, me and my attitude where I know everything was like, no, here's why you should see it, Mom, which she never has. But
probably better that moms haven't seen it.
But again, it wasn't because it was near my experience. It was because I was vicariously, connected to these characters in a very powerful way.
Yeah, no, it's a great movie that I haven't probably seen. I don't know that I've seen it probably since like 1995 or 96.
It's not an easy revisit.
I don't know that I've... It would be an interesting one to take a second look at now. The next film on my list, I'm out of the 90s for this one, and that is a much more recent film that a lot of people missed, and it's just a great little movie. It's very funny. It is The Way, Way Back from 2013, directed and written by Nat Faxon and Jim Rash, who won... Oscars for the screenplay for The Descendants and the Alexander Payne film. And it is just, The Way, Way Back is just a wonderful movie featuring Steve Carell as a total like jerk stepdad.
He's good at it, though. He's
great.
Really good at
it.
It's
a very against type Steve Carell role. Yeah. It's about a young boy spending the summer with his mom and her new, I believe, husband. I think they're married in the film. I can't remember.
So, yeah.
And so basically his stepdad.
He has to make it work, and he's going to have a relationship this way.
And he's, spending this summer away and gets a job or kind of just hanging out, helping at this water park.
Yeah.
And it's got Oscar winner Sam Rockwell in it before he won his Oscar. But it's a great, funny little movie that for whatever reason, a lot of people just did not see when it was out in the theater.
That's true. I loved it. I saw it twice actually in the theater because it's an easy watch compared to Kids.
Yes, absolutely.
For sure. Yep. But it has that too, where it has like the great awkward teenager, but it also has a really well represented, the middle-aged parents aren't just these caricatures of like, go to bed, clean your, like they have actual, affairs and drama on their own as well.
It has a lot of very authentic moments, but it's also very funny as well.
Right.
So it's a real kind of slice of life on the dramatic side, but then it's laugh out loud funny but if you have ever seen Nat Faxon and Jim Rash, they're just weird goofball kind of comedians. So the fact that they're just hilarious guys, and actually
I think they're both in it too.
Yeah, they're both in it. They both work at the park. Yeah, so it is definitely worth seeing if you have not seen it.
Of all the I don't know how many movies Sam Rockwell's done, but he's one of those guys that if you said it was 175 credits on IMDb, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
At least
and that is one of the top performances I've seen of his. And I've seen a bunch of his too. That you just watched the one, and I wanted to watch it again because his character is so much fun to watch. He's sort of like the wise. Ish, boss, not very good at being a boss though, character that the main character works for at the water park.
Yeah, when you're taking, life advice from the guy who's, working as the seasonal manager at the water park.
Who encourages like breakdancing competitions and all kinds of shenanigans. So it's really like a character out of a Broken Lizard skit or something that he's playing. But
it's a great movie.
We do have a few special events to inform you about this weekend real quick. The Met is continuing. This Met series seems like every weekend it's just a brand new title.
Yeah, there's pretty much every weekend right now. And then I think in December there's only one, but right now there's one pretty much every weekend, I think.
I'm going to do my best with this one. La Fanciulla del West.
I think it's La Fanciulla.
Fanciulla del West. Okay.
Yeah.
The Del West throws me off because that's not a very Italian-sounding name there.
But I'm not an authority, so I don't
we
know
are clearly opera fans.
I know more about opera now than I ever have in my life, though, because of working here and doing the Mets. And
I just can't pronounce them
that.
very properly.
And I've gone to some operas now, but I'm still not. I always butcher the foreign language things.
So the Met live, as the schedule usually is, live on Saturday, October 27th at 12:55 p.m. and the encore show Wednesday, October 31st at 6:30 p.m.
And we have continuing shows of the National Theater encore presentations of Danny Boyle's Frankenstein. The upcoming shows this week on Monday the 29th and Wednesday the 31st at 7 o'clock feature Johnny Lee Miller as the creature. This is the production where he and Benedict Cumberbatch every other night switched roles. One night one was the creature and the other one was the professor or the doctor, and then they switched back and forth.
The Late Shift Film Series continues this weekend with our special and annual Rocky Horror Picture Show Halloween editions. It'll be Saturday at 9:30 p.m. and again at midnight.
And if you're a fan of Rocky Horror, check out our bonus episode that we did this week. That is with our resident cast, Simply as Servants, Kevin Boysick, who's the head of that. So there's another episode of Cedar Lee Radio you can check out. We also have a Fathom event in Studio Ghibli Fest 2018, continuing with perhaps Miyazaki's most beloved and famous film, an Oscar-winning film, Spirited Away. That is going to be playing on Sunday, October 28th at 12:55. That is in the dubbed version. And then again on Monday the 29th at 7 o'clock, and that will be subtitled.
We also have one advance showing. We wanted to get the word out to everybody. It's a special Halloween show of the new 2018 version of Suspiria on Halloween night, October 31st at 8 p.m., and then we will be opening it the following weekend, which will be, where are my notes here? November 2nd.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we will be talking a lot about Suspiria then, so we won't talk much about it now other than to say, go see
it. Next week's episode, we will be discussing the previously mentioned Suspiria. Previously mentioned like 5 seconds ago.
Yes.
Also, Can You Ever Forgive Me opens, along with The Happy Prince and Beautiful Boy, and inspired by Luca
Guadagnino.
Thank you, Luca Guadagnino. His art house remake of Suspiria will be discussing our top 3 art house horror films, which are, we're excluding the Grudges of the world and Screams and Happy Death Day. I can't believe I couldn't think of a more recent mainstream horror film.
Like the Halloween remake?
Halloween remake, I guess, yeah. But, that's fairly artfully done. But the whole, more like The Witch or It Follows, or the current kind of resurgence in more thoughtful horror films rather than just the typical PG-13 possession or slasher films going on there. So if you want to submit your picks, we are at Cedar Lee Theater. Use the hashtag CedarLee3, the number 3, to save you some space there for more of your picks. Thank you so much for tuning in to Cedar Lee Radio for this week. All the music heard on the show is original music written by Grant Heineman and performed by the New Heights Jazz Ensemble, used with their permission, of course. Visit clevelandcinemas.com for current up-to-date showtimes and to purchase advance tickets, or call 440-528-0355 for current and up-to-date daily showtimes. This info is also in the show notes, as well as links to everything discussed today. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Cedar Lee Theater, spelled with an R-E at the end. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcast, and while you're subscribing, we'd appreciate you leaving us a rating or review. Better yet, tell a fellow film geek about the show. See you at the movies.